Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. This is Brian at Aim High. This course is going to be what's new in Catalina, as well as an introductory lesson for anyone who's kind of new to a Mac or kind of figuring out what things are. Like I said, we do have another version of this. This is more for people who are transitioning to a Mac and are wondering what Catalina is, as well as kind of a base foundation of how to use your Mac and what things are on the Mac. So we hope that this helps give you some insight. And with that being said, let's get started. So the first thing that we're going to go over is basically what's called your menu bar. Your menu bar is right there up top where that arrow is pointing. That's going to consist of that gray bar there, and it's going to be mainly on the left side. If you notice there, that Finder, File, Edit, View, those tabs are going to be what's called your menu bar. Your menu bar, if you'll note there, it looks similar but varies by functionality within your app usage. So you can be in one app at one moment and you'll get a different list of different menu bar options there, and then you can switch apps to, like, say, mail or something like that, and you'll get a different set of actions on that menu bar there. So keep that in mind as something to look for. The other thing here is the dock. The dock is that gray bar down there on the bottom, as you can see, it's being pointed to. That will allow you to have immediate access to any applications or things like that that you need, as opposed to using Finder to find or even Launchpad. That can be personalized, like I said, by just dragging and dropping things. There's a couple of new features, not so much new, but a couple of things I'd like to point out on this is after that little bar there, after your preferences, as you can see, there is a download folder. That is where all your downloads live, so that you have quick access to them. But otherwise, feel free to use Finder and just use the sidebar to find it there. Another thing about the dock there to note is that the dock will also display the last 3 recent apps that you've been using. This is something that can be toggled off or on. You can do that via your system preferences should you need to do something like that. I find it useful. However, I know some people find it as more of a nuisance than anything. But like I said, again, that's from person to person, so feel free to change that in your settings if you don't like that. Alrighty, so next up we're going to go over some of the changes in Catalina. The first thing is going to be your application changes. So basically, I'm going to cover the major things that they did behind the scenes as far as what you can do with your applications and things like that. So iTunes is now 3 applications. There's no longer any iTunes. Anything with Catalina on it has been split into 3 different things. So iTunes is now gone. It has switched over to what's called Apple Music, but like I said, we'll cover that here in a later segment there. The 3 different things are Apple Music, Podcast, and Apple TV. That is what iTunes now lives as on your computer. You have 3 different options to choose from, whether you want to pay for the subscription for Apple Music or just use your library. All of that is automatically transitioned over your previous purchases or songs that you gotten from a CD or something like that. Podcast is now its own thing, so if you follow podcasts and things like that, you can now download those to your computer itself. And then you have Apple TV, which is a place where you can kind of find more stuff that you watch, any movies and things like that that you previously had, like home videos, music videos, things like that are all going to live on Apple TV. Keep that in mind, as like I said, it is split from Apple Music now. They are 3 individual platforms. Later on in the course, we'll kind of go into what they look like and things like that, so just keep that in mind. So Catalina no longer supports what's called 32-bit applications. What that means is anything that is older or something that hasn't been updated is usually going to be a 32-bit application. And nowadays, the applications are what's called 64-bit, which is a larger version of that application. This has been something that has been forthcoming, so lots of people have prepped for it. Lots of applications and things like that. Companies have already prepped and released the 64-bit versions prior to Catalina even coming out. However, any old application that is no longer being supported or things like that, you need to keep in mind that that isn't going to be working anymore. So keep in mind, like I said, those 32 bits aren't going to be working, and you may be wondering, how do I check to see if my 32-bit applications aren't going to be working, or if I have the 64 bits? Hopefully you haven't already updated to Catalina. If that's the case, if you're just kind of reviewing this to see if you need Catalina or what the features are, I highly recommend doing this next step here, which is checking to see if you have any 32-bit applications. This will be the same on Mojave or any other OS, so keep that in mind. Just by clicking on your Apple menu there, from the Apple menu you get your Apple menu and you'll select the About This Mac. After selecting About This Mac, you'll select System Report there. System Report is going to bring up this bar here, and if you notice, I had to actually scroll under Software. There is a tab there called Applications. Under Applications, you can actually find every single application you have on your computer, and that will tell you if it is 64-bit or not. If you notice on the right hand side of that menu bar there, I have the 64-bit Intel area highlighted. That's going to let you know with a yes or a no if it is compatible or not. Anything with a no will not work on Catalina. Like I said, hopefully if you're reviewing this, you haven't updated yet, but if you have, that's actually going to be relocated in that relocated file folder on your desktop there, so keep that in mind if you've already updated. If you haven't updated, like I said, this is a really good step for you to do to make sure that it is compatible, and anything that says no will most likely be something that Apple has, like you can see there, it's obtained from Apple. A lot of those are going to say no, but Apple has been aware and is aware that those guys are not going to be working on Catalina, so disregard anything that says Apple on there, but you want to make sure that your applications that you use on a regular basis, like Microsoft, things like that, are 64-bit. If they aren't, we recommend that you at least contact them and say, hey, is there a 64-bit version that's been released? Or if not, by going to their website, it'll let you know under their product details. A lot of these websites will have whether it's a 32-bit application or a 64-bit. So all that being said, you're probably wondering, how do I synchronize my devices? Your iPad, your iPhone. How do I get my songs back to my iPhone and things like that? Or how do I put my movies and things like that? How do I access my iOS device or any devices on my computer if iTunes is now gone? That will be now under Finder, and right there you can see I highlighted it by clicking on Finder. That pulls up your Finder window here. If you notice, I've highlighted under Locations, my iPhone is actually now a virtual device there. Right now I actually have it plugged in, so this is what it's going to look like when your iPhone or iPad or something is plugged in. You're going to manage it now through Finder as opposed to going through iTunes. Here you're going to see, like here on the menu here, you can see you can handle your backup options, you can handle your music, movies, TV shows, any of your podcasts. All of this stuff should be syncing via your iCloud and things like that, but some people don't actually have that on, so this is where they actually can physically manage those options there. You can see here I highlighted on the options portion there, show this iPhone when on Wi-Fi. I recommend that just because it doesn't have to be tethered to your computer. I use mine via Wi-Fi, and I'm able to back up that way. I'm able to edit my music that way. I'm able to get rid of podcasts, some TV shows, things like that off of it via it just being on the Wi-Fi network if you select that option. So keep that in mind. That's a super helpful tool there. Hopefully it's something that you take into consideration for using. Okay, so now we're going to get into what those three applications look like that iTunes replaced. So first up, we have Apple TV. Once you click on Apple TV, that's, like I said, going to show all of your It's really nice because it kind of bundles. If you subscribe to like Hulu or Netflix or any major subscription company like them, it'll actually pick up where you left off and show your videos and things like that as to what you were watching in one place as opposed to switching throughout the apps. Another thing that's nice about it is Apple TV also has a streaming service which is called Apple TV Plus. This is available, like I said, for streaming and is a monthly subscription. Right now, they do have a few perks of giving you a couple months or a couple days or weeks for free, so check that out. Like I said, it's kind of just where all your movies and everything live. If you look up top there, you can notice what you're watching now. You have a movies tab, a TVs tab. If you have kids, it actually has a kids section for you to watch any, or where it has recommendations for cartoons, things like that. And then under library is actually where your home videos or music videos and things like that are going to live, that you used to have in iTunes. So kind of get familiar with that. But like I said, that is Apple TV Plus, or the Apple TV app with the Apple TV Plus subscription and things like that in there. Next up, we have podcasts. Your podcast is going to look exactly like it does on your iPhone or iOS device. They just brought it to this platform as its own application. So, like I said, it looks exactly like what you're used to seeing, with the exception of it looking a little more cleaner, in my opinion, as everything's viewed a little bit more in depth and detail there. So, a neat thing about that is you can actually download your library or download the next episode of your podcast to your computer, so you don't have to worry about being connected to internet or things like that. I know I use mine on the go a lot, so that comes in handy. Feel free to get familiar with that. Like I said, all of these are free, so feel free to get in there and find some podcasts that you like, or if you haven't already been using that. Next up, we have your Apple Music. Once you see that there, your Apple Music looks pretty much like your iPhone, what you would see on your iPhone there, with the exception of, like I said, none of your movies, anything video, anything movie related or anything like that has been removed. So all that's in Apple TV there under that app. But like I said, here you can see your recently added music. You can see your library. You can actually browse if you're an Apple Music subscriber. That gives you the option to find new music and stream new music and things like that. So if you're not a subscriber, at least your previous music, such as your CDs and previous downloads and things like that, should already be on there. Otherwise, it looks like I want to show you here on your devices, your iPhone does pop up there. So you can see that as you can manage it as well through there. That is another way to manage your music and things like that. So keep that in mind. That is something that is a little bit newer for them to just kind of put it right there. But like I said, there's different ways for you to manage your music now. It's via Finder or through iTunes. I highly recommend using Finder just because, like I said, that has everything in one. That's going to have your videos with your movies. Movies with your music and things like that. So I recommend doing it that way so that you don't have to go through each individual app there. The next thing I want to talk about is Sidecar. So Sidecar is a new feature that is coming out with iOS 13 and Catalina. Alright, and what Sidecar does is it allows you to use your iPad as a second display. So it's pretty nice because Apple's basically saying, hey, here you go. Here's a free kind of second display so long as you have that iPad. But a way to enable this is through your system preferences. Clicking on system preferences there, that's going to bring up them. If you notice on Catalina, it has the actual Sidecar option there under your network. So once you click on there, it'll actually pull up the Sidecar options and settings list there. It's very basic. It's pretty straightforward. It's going to ask you what you want your sidebar to be on the left, on the bottom. You can do your touch bar as well, which is nice for any of us who have the touch bar on our Mac devices. It allows you to actually view that touch bar on your iPad regardless of what kind of app you're in, and that does change based off of what app you're in as well, so keep that in mind. And then one thing I do want to point out is the iPad does have to be linked directly to your iCloud account. It cannot be on anybody else's. If it is on anybody else's, it actually will not show up on there as a option to connect to. So if you look right here, it does say connect to with the drop down arrow. Right now it says no devices because I have my iPad on my work email. After switching it over to my personal email, which is what is connected on my Mac device, that then appeared there. So after that, like I said, after it's matched on the iCloud account, you can use this as a second display. I personally toggle my external displays on my menu bar up there up top, and you can actually access it from there as opposed to going through system preferences. So whichever works best for you. Like I said, most of these are going to be kind of dependent on what the user likes and what the user doesn't like. So keep that in mind. That's how you enable Sidecar and how you use it. Now we're going to get into the right hand side of your menu bar up there. So what that's called on the right hand side is the notification center. If you notice, it has those 3 lines with a couple of dots there. If you click on that there, that's going to bring up your notification center. So it's going to look just like your iPhone or iOS device. If any of us are familiar with any Apple products, it's pretty similar to what we see. There you have your today view, which is where you can view any personalized things that you set up, like your calendar, schedules, weather, anything upcoming, alarms, things like that, stocks. And then you have your notifications tab, which is just like on any iOS device. It's going to come up with any of your notifications in that segment there. After you get out of that there, we have your Siri tab. What's nice about this is you can actually click on it and it'll summon it, or you can just, of course, say, "Hey Siri," and that's going to bring it up for you. So it's kind of dependent on what you prefer. There we go, and that's how we know she's listening to us. Make a request and it should answer back to you there. Next up from there that we have is what's called Spotlight. Spotlight is that magnifying glass there, and I would like to point out for us who are new to the Mac world, you can push Command Space. That's also going to summon what's called Spotlight. Or you can click on that magnifying glass there. Like I said, it is completely up to you. Whichever works best for you. We typically get used to shortcut keys, and I love my shortcut keys, so keep in mind that that is Command Space, and that's going to bring up Spotlight exactly the way it looks like this here. Spotlight is a way for you to search your entire system for any specific files. You can use it for a calculator by simply typing in your problem right there under that Spotlight search, and it'll figure it out for you. One other good thing about Spotlight search is it does search the web for anything that you are needing. So should you be doing research that by pushing Command Space or clicking on that magnifying glass there on that menu bar, that is going to enable you to search Google, things like that, Yahoo. It's going to give you multiple hits for whatever search you're looking for. But like I said, it's also really useful for anything you're looking for on your computer. It's a super easy, convenient, quick way to find files and locate them on that Mac device or iCloud drive there. So after that, we have your status menus. Those status menus are going to be the rest of what's on the right-hand side of your menu bar up top there. As you can tell, your first one is going to be your Wi-Fi. That's going to be where you have those bars up top. That's going to be where you can enable your Wi-Fi, disable your Wi-Fi, or bring up any of your network options. After that there, you see a little screen there with an arrow. That is actually what's called your external displays. So there you can actually click on it and AirPlay to a iPad, like I was talking about with Sidecar. You can AirPlay to an external device like a smart TV that's connected to the network. You can also connect to an Apple TV that's around you or that you have access to or permission to access. After that there you have your battery one, of course. I personally click on that and it shows you your what's currently consuming the most of your battery. So that's how you kind of know more or less what's using the most significant energy there. Another thing there that you can toggle is showing your battery percentage. So on this one, I don't actually have it turned on, but I do on my personal one, I do have it turned on just because I like to know what my computer is sitting at as opposed to just looking at a virtual icon there. And then, of course, you have your time and date options. You can toggle that for whatever preferences you need. Again, that can be toggled for 24-hour military time or regular time. You can put the seconds on there. You can change how it's displayed. And then another feature you can do on there which is actually if you have more than one account on your device, beside your magnifying glass there, it'll actually display your name, and that'll enable you to do a switching accounts a lot faster as opposed to clicking log out or switch users. So keep that in mind. Next up here we have your Apple menu, which we've already kind of went through a little bit earlier there, but your Apple menu there can be achieved by clicking on your Apple icon up top on the left hand side there. That's going to bring up that icon, or that menu bar there, excuse me, that kind of brings up anything there as far as system preferences about this Mac, your restart options, sleep options, logging out, locking your screen, those sorts of things. I am going to show you a little bit more about what About This Mac does. So if you will click on About This Mac there, that's actually going to bring up your bar here, or your menu bar, that kind of gives you a broad overview of what you're looking at on your Mac there. So it gives you your processor, memory, startup disks, your graphics card, your serial number, all your version of what OS you're on, and that sort of thing. But if you look up top, there's also a couple of options for displays, storage, support, and service. The biggest thing that I want to point out on this is the storage. So if you'll click up top on that menu bar on storage there, that's going to bring over this. And what I want to point out here is, if you look there, I have an external currently attached that shows that untitled there, so it is indexing my untitled external hard drive. But I do want you to look at your internal one, which is that gray one up top that says Macintosh HD. If you look there, there is a manage button beside that. This isn't something that is particularly new to Catalina. This was released with with High Sierra, and it became a little bit more in depth as we came through the bigger updates of the OSs. So if you click on manage, I want you to see that this is going to bring up this list here, and that's going to be a good tool for any of our clients or customers that need a good way to help manage their storage, see what they're using, what's going on with their storage, where their storage is going, and things like that there. So if you notice there, it breaks it down into applications, books, documents, to iCloud Drive, mail, messages, music, all that good stuff. What I like to view there is other users. I personally have two accounts on my computer, so I like to view both my other user and make sure that we're not getting too much data or storage off of that there. So I did turn mine on to automatically empty my trash. That is one of the only automated features that they will offer you, as they don't know what files to delete that aren't in the trash. So using reduce clutter and reviewing those files is a really good tool for you guys to use and kind of help keep you where you need to be. Right now, the standard guidelines are that any computer out there should have at least about 15 to 20% of its hard drive free at all times. That being said, the computer does have to read and write itself. So when we start pushing that to the limits of filling up our hard drives and things like that, our computers start acting finicky and start giving us crazy issues. So keep in mind, this will help hopefully keep you where you need to be as far as reducing those large files or files that we don't use or something that can be removed to an external drive there. So hopefully that comes in handy for you guys there. Okay, so I would like to point out on how to use Finder and kind of what that is. So Finder is Mac's way of finding anything that you have on your computer, hence the word Finder. But that's that smiley face down there. If you click on that, that's going to bring up your Finder window, is what they're called. Your Finder windows are anything that you're looking for files. So it'll have your, like you can see there, your downloads, applications, your iCloud Drive. Right now, it's automatically set to go to your Recents tab, so anything you've recently been working on or recently opened will automatically generate and populate there. So that's kind of nice. Other than that, like I said, it's pretty straightforward. That's Apple's way of letting you find kind of what they need, what you need in terms of documents and files and things like that. After that, I do want to point out what that rocket ship is there. Most people do not know what this is, and it is not something that is new with Catalina, but like I said, this is an introductory course, so I do want to point out what that is. That is what Apple calls the Launchpad. The Launchpad is what we use to find all or to open up applications. So on our iOS devices, our applications are automatically there. So for a lack of better words, that's your Launchpad on your iOS device. So by clicking on your Launchpad there, that enables you to view this screen, which is basically the same thing as using Finder, clicking on applications, and as opposed to viewing them in a list, you view them as a grid, and you can actually see them in a more widespread format like so. Like I said, that's something that most people don't really know too much is there. I've me working personally with my clientele. A lot of people actually just drag that off the dock and don't use it, just because they don't know what it is or what its features are. What's nice about that is if you do need it and you can't get to like Finder or Finder's not being responsive or something like that, that enables you to open up those windows from there. Alrighty, so the next thing I do want to cover that they did update in this Catalina is the Reminders app. So your Reminders app is really nice because what they updated now is a couple more features as far as what you can do in terms of how it reminds you and when it reminds you. Right now, what you can see on my screen here is one big feature there is when messaging a person. So you can actually create a reminder to send an email to a client when you're messaging a specific person. Note that this person does have to be in your contact list as it does make you select it from there when you select that. But another good thing there is that they added when you arrive at this location. So keep that in mind as well. A couple of other things, if you haven't already noticed, are, of course, the settings. They are a little bit more different now, a little bit more laid out. There's a couple of different options in terms of what model and things like that that you have. But like we've already covered, Sidecar is really the biggest feature that they've added. They've really just been pushing for the Apple ID to be in one location. So by clicking on your Apple ID there, you're able to view your iCloud functions, any of your toggle into your settings and things like that that you need to access through your iCloud stuff there. And then, of course, you have your family sharing as well. So keep that in mind. Next up, we're going to go over some of the security changes that they have kind of implemented and what they've done under the hood. So macOS Catalina actually makes apps jump through a little more hoops. And what does that mean? So it basically makes them ask for permission for anything. So they'll start asking you permission to access an external hard drive, access your downloads folder. It's pretty locked down, but it does give you that much more peace of mind knowing that something will not creep in the background. This is mainly pertaining to anything like hard drive related and things like that. Here on this screen, I'll show you there. Hopefully, it's not this intense whenever you download, but as you can see there, it is asking permission for virtually everything. We are getting permission requests to access downloads folders. Safari is trying to get access to your desktop and things like that. So I mean, hopefully it's not this intense whenever you update, but like I said, this is a little more of a security tied down system. So once you click that allow button, it doesn't prompt you again for that specific thing. So like for example, if you had your hard drive that you carry with you on a regular basis and you just updated, the first thing you're gonna get is Finder wants to access an external device. If you click allow on that, your hard drive is actually going to appear on your hard drive just like normal or on your Finder tab. And then you won't be prompted on that device again as that user. So keep that in mind. Other than that, in Mail, in macOS Catalina, it has been upgraded to let you block senders. So back in the past, you could unsubscribe from a person, but even if you still got that annoying email, you still wanted you still couldn't get out of getting rid of it. So what this allows you to do is block that contact entirely. You can achieve this by going to your mail, clicking on that person's name, and if you notice, Right there it says block contact. Now what this is automatically going to do is if it's a subscription based place or someone like that, any email that you correspondence that you receive from them at that point will automatically be sent to the trash folder. You won't be notified of anything after that point, so make sure that this is something that you want to proceed with. But I personally have used it rigorously, and it is amazing when it comes to blocking out these pesky emails and things like that that we don't want to receive. So one thing to point out is macOS Catalina also reformats your hard drive into two different containers. So you have one hard drive, but it basically splits it out into two separate containers. What that means is, think of it like a plasticware with two ports, two places to put things. That's all that means. One of those spots that we can put stuff is your OS. The other place is going to be any of your security sensitive information, such as files, data, in terms of that stuff there. So this is probably something that you won't notice, but if you are a user of disk utility, then that's when you'll actually start to see the difference in one that says Macintosh HD and the other that says Macintosh HD data. I'll go ahead and open that up and show you there. The highlighted segment there is your what you see on your hard drive. If you use disk utility, you are familiar with it only having one container there that usually just says Macintosh HD. But with this security change, what they enabled it to do is enabling the computer to basically boot off of just an OS that is in that Macintosh HD container. As soon as you put your credentials in and log in, your computer actually accesses the second portion of that container there, which is the data portion. So that is actually encrypted by itself and is not accessible until you open up the actual OS itself. The OS actually has to open up that container, specific data container there. So not to get too technical for you guys, but just in case you're wondering why is there two separate containers there, you really won't have to mess with any of those. That's typically more on the technical side of kind of what we see on these guys there. So all right, everyone. So that's pretty much all we have for this update here. Hopefully, we answered some broad kind of overview questions for you guys and helped give you some insight as to what Catalina is and what the Mac is as well. If you have any questions or need any further help, feel free to reach out to us at aimhigh.com or give us a call. We are here to help make better technology and make technology work better for us. So, like I said, hope this helps and thanks for joining us. Have a great day.